Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. The small town of Maplewood was a quiet place, where the sound of rustling leaves often replaced the buzz of city life. Nestled between rolling hills and sprawling farmlands, it seemed like an idyllic setting for families to raise their children far from the chaos of urbanity. But beneath this veneer of tranquility lay a complexity that would soon explode into a nightmare. On a particularly crisp autumn morning in November, the air was thick with anticipation. Townsfolk bustled about with errands, their breath escaping in clouds of vapor, unaware that the day would take a sinister turn. It was around 10 a.m. when the scream echoed through the streets, a visceral sound that shattered the early morning calm. The origins of that scream raced from an inconspicuous two-story house at the end of Maple Street. No one paid much attention to the Johnsons. They were the type of family that blended into the background. James Johnson had his routine, a reliable presence at the local hardware store. His wife, Linda, was known for her delicious apple pies at the annual fair. Their two children, both under 10, would wave from the yard, innocence radiating from their small frame. Yet, on this fateful day, their lives would intertwine with darkness. As the local police received the first frantic calls, they were oblivious to the heinous crime that awaited them. The tension in the air was palpable as sirens pierced the sleepy town, beckoning officers to uncover the hidden truth lurking within the walls of the Johnsons' home. Hints of dread crept into every quiet corner of Maplewood as the watchful eyes of neighbors turned toward the house and the comfortable normalcy began to crack, allowing a deeply entrenched evil to reveal itself. The victim. As the sun clawed its way higher in the sky, illuminating the streets of Maplewood, a tragic reality began to unfold within the confines of the Johnson household. Officers arrived at the scene, a mix of seasoned veterans and fresh recruits, faces painted with grim determination as they filed into what would soon become a crime scene. Inside, a cacophony of voices filled the rooms, some echoing with disbelief, others trembling with fear. Linda Johnson was discovered in the living room, her vibrant spirit snuffed out far too soon. A beloved mother, she was known for her boundless energy and infectious laughter. Books lined the shelves, many dog-eared with notes of affection in the margins, as some of them had been shared with her children over countless bedtime stories. The fatigue of nightly rituals was evident, yet her steadfast love illuminated the hearts of those who knew her. She had been a fixture in Maplewood. Volunteering and organizing community bake sale. Linda's light seemed so intrinsic to the town that the thought of her absence felt abhorrent. Investigators marveled at the juxtaposition of her vibrant life against the lifeless form lying before them. The scene wasn't chaotic. Rather, it bore the stillness of a photograph, eerily calm yet grotesquely haunting. As they meticulously cataloged the area, one officer noted the faint scent of cinnamon lingering in the air, a painful reminder of the pie she'd made just days prior. It was evident that a struggle had taken place. Scattered papers and overturned furniture bore witness to a confrontation that had turned deadly. In Maplewood, the term victim was often reserved for distant newspaper articles, but now it resonated intimately and personally. The disarray of the home mirrored the ripple effect of this tragedy, and each resident felt the impact twist tighter around their hearts. knowing they would never again see the warm smile of Linda Johnson gracing the town. The crime scene. Inside the Johnson home, the air hung heavy with the weight of tragedy as investigators set to work. Crime scene tape cordoned off the living room, a stark contrast to the plush curtains fluttering gently in the breeze from an open window. The tight-knit community of Maplewood could not escape the growing sense of unease. Something vile had taken root in their midst. Detective Sarah Beaumont led the team with steely resolve. A veteran of the force, she had witnessed her share of horrors, but the sight of a woman brutally slain in her own sanctuary left a bitter taste in her mouth. Her brows furrowed as she surveyed the scene of patterns of red abruptly staining the beige carpet, with blood pooling around Linda's still body, intertwined with fresh autumn leaves brought in by the wind. Every detail mattered. A broken lamp lay on the floor, its light bulb shattered, pieces sparkling like ominous confetti against the backdrop of chaos. A photo frame was overturned, the glass splintered, revealing a picture of the family at last year's county fair, smiling and carefree. Tucked beneath the sofa was a single red hairpin, likely fallen from Linda's hair during the struggle. She made a mental note. Each element might hold a piece of the puzzle needed to unravel this heinous crime. As forensic technicians began collecting evidence, their movements were precise yet reverent. They dusted for fingerprints along the mantel and photographed every inch of the room from multiple angles, ensuring that no detail was missed. The rustling of evidence bags and the whispers of officers created a low hum in the backdrop, a stark contrast to the jarring reality of what had occurred. Detached yet acutely aware, Sarah felt the weight of two worlds colliding: the brutality of the crime and the innocent lives irrevocably changed. In a small town like Maplewood, cracks formed in the facade of peace, and she understood that every clue, every trace left behind, was a lifeline for the community as they struggled to grasp the motivations behind such dark. For now, all that was left was the enduring question of who could inflict such pain and why. The early investigation. The sun dipped low in the afternoon sky, casting long shadows across Maplewood as the community grappled with the aftermath of the murder. Rumors began to swirl, carried on the whispers of townsfolk who could scarcely believe that one of their own had been the victim of such violence. In the dim light of the Maplewood Police Department, officers convened, poring over initial findings while their thoughts seethed with urgent questions. Detective Beaumont gathered her team around a long table cluttered with notes and photographs. Each face reflected a mixture of determination and grief. "We need to dig into Linda's life," she instructed, her voice firm. "Who would want to hurt her? We start with the obvious. Family and friends. Well, please. Oh." They divided responsibilities quickly, with each officer fanning out through the town. One officer was dispatched to speak with James, Linda's husband, still in shock, while others looked to interview neighbors and close friends. As the team pieced together the contours of Linda's life, it became clear that she was not just a beloved mother and community member, but a woman with burgeoning ambitions of her own. A local library where Linda spent countless hours volunteering, staff recalled her enthusiasm for literature and her plans to start a book club that would bring together women in the community. Yet, as they spoke, whispers of her rising independence added shadows to her character, a departure from traditional roles that some might have resented. Meanwhile, Detective Beaumont's team discovered a palpable tension in the homeowners adjacent to the Johnsons. Mara Thompson, a neighbor, reported having heard raised voices through the thin walls 2 nights earlier. The frantic look in her eyes spoke volumes, sparking the detective's instinct that this was no random act of violence. There was more to the story than met the eye. Suddenly, the investigation began to unfurl like a canvas, layers of complexity emerging with every new witness. A web of secrets wove deep into the fabric of the community, and to uncover the truth buried beneath those layers, they would need to tread carefully. Each conversation turned the community closer to the chilling reality that not everything in Maplewood was as unspoiled as it appeared. The search for answers began, yet darkness beckoned just out of sight. The dead ends. As the investigation gathered momentum, the initial hope that someone in the close-knit town of Maplewood would provide a definitive lead soon began to dwindle. Days passed, turning into a week, and amidst the diligent work of the police, the list of dead ends grew like snowdrifts in an unrelenting winter. Each interview conducted seemed to circle back, repeating fragments of sorrow, but yielding nothing concrete. Detective Beaumont sat in her office late one evening, surrounded by photographs of Linda Johnson and scribbled notes. Each delicate line painted a portrait of a beloved woman who had disappeared into the shadows of violence. She rubbed her temples, fatigue weighing heavily on her, as she contemplated the pieces that had yet to fit together. James Johnson was cooperative yet evasive, recalling his last moments with Linda. They had argued over household responsibilities, but he insisted it was nothing out of the ordinary. A neighbor reported hearing him leave for work that morning, but no one had seen anything suspicious. The alibi held up, and suspicion fell flat. Meanwhile, the brewing rumors in Maplewood began to suffocate any sense of direction. Friends had varying recollections. Some insisted she had been having trouble with a local contractor over renovation costs, while others mentioned Linda's budding friendship with a man from the book club, a mere acquaintance. Each potential lead sparked hope, only to fizzle into indistinct chatter and uncertainty. Further complicating matters, forensic analysis of the hairpin found at the scene yielded no matches. It didn't belong to Linda and contained no traceable DNA. Detective Beaumont felt a gnawing frustration in her gut, realizing that no single piece of evidence was leading them to a suspect. The whispers of the community grew louder, laced with speculation about who might have wanted to harm the Johnson family. Was it a crime of passion, an unsolved grudge, or something even more insidious lurking beneath the surface? As the days bled into one another, it became apparent to Beaumont that darkness had a way of sinking deep roots, entangling lives in knots of fear and mistrust. Every conversation felt like pushing against a tide as they sought clarity. If they were to unveil the truth behind Linda's murder, they would need to keep peeling back layers, searching for that elusive glimmer of sanity within the storm of chaos. A break in the case. It was on a bleak Thursday afternoon, when the heavy gray clouds seemed to reflect the town's mood, that an unexpected phone call broke the somber routine at the Maplewood Police Department. Detective Beaumont was knee-deep in paperwork, struggling to stave off despair when the shrill ringtone sliced through the silence. She reached for the receiver. Heart racing. Could this be the break they had long awaited? Beaumont, a clipped voice on the other end said, "It's Officer Taylor. We've got something." The urgency was palpable. A noise drowned out by office murmurs faded into the background As the detective sat up straight, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "We found the owner of that hairpin. One of the women at the district office recognized it right away." Moments later, Beaumont was speeding toward the Maplewood district office, a modest building that housed small-town bureaucracy. Her mind raced with a mix of hope and apprehension. Could it be the lead they desperately needed? She arrived to find Officer Taylor already waiting, speaking to a petite woman with auburn hair. Her anxious eyes met Beaumont's as she approached, the tightness of her features betraying her unease. "This is Claire Riley," Taylor introduced her. "She says the hairpin belongs to her." Beaumont extended her hand in greeting, but Claire recoiled slightly, as though a memory lingered just out of reach. "I lost it a month ago," she explained, her voice wavering. "I think I left it at my book club, Linda's book club." A murmur of connection stirred within Beaumont. Was this a coincidence or something more sinister? Claire recounted how she and Linda had discussed a particular book over wine. Supposedly harmless chatter, but the tension between them had changed since the last meeting. Beaumont knew the power of unresolved friction, the type that could bend into something darker. As Claire spoke, her unease turned tangible, revealing a complex web of relationships strung across the very fabric of their community. The air crackled with unspoken tension. A suggestion of jealousy? Perhaps something deeper? Beaumont filled her notebook with notes, sensing that this connection could lead them closer to discovering not just the motivation, but the darkness festering within Maplewood. Finally, it seemed as though they might unearth what lay hidden beneath the surface. The veil of calm that had long cloaked the town was beginning to lift. The suspect. The conversation with Claire Riley had ignited flames of suspicion in Beaumont's mind. As she delved deeper into Claire's background, it soon became clear that her world was intricately woven into the fabric of the Johnson family's life. The more she researched, the more threads began to unravel, each hinting at a simmering rivalry that had lain dormant, waiting for an opportunity to erupt. Claire had been a regular attendee at Linda's book club, a gathering of women that had sparked camaraderie among its members. Yet, it wasn't long before Beaumont learned that the group had fostered not just friendship, but a sense of competition among its members. Linda's efforts to elevate the club's profile, alongside her natural charisma, had begun to eclipse Claire's own passion for literature. As Beaumont examined Claire's social media accounts, she stumbled across old posts filled with veiled jealousy and passive-aggressive remarks about Linda's superior selections. Digging even deeper, Beaumont discovered that Claire had enviously watched as Linda became a beloved figure, not just in their society, but to many within the community. "This can't end well," she scribbled in the margins of her notes, an unsettling feeling growing in the pit of her stomach. Claire's friendship with Linda seemed to have twisted into something more toxic over the months, creating a Pandora's box of hidden resentment. With each passing day, more and more evidence led to Claire as a potential suspect. Phone records showed that she had attempted to contact Linda on the night of the murder, just hours before the crime was committed. Beaumont maintained her composure, but her heart raced at the implication. Here lay a connection that transformed Claire from a mere acquaintance into a centerpiece of the investigation. The detective felt a surge of resolve. If Claire was indeed hiding something, the interrogation room would reveal her truths. For every hidden facet had a way of finding its light. Beaumont prepared for the next step, determined to confront Claire with a barrage of questions that would peel back the layers of deception, laying bare the tensions that had festered between them. The darkness of jealousy enveloping Claire now seemed palpable, and Beaumont sensed that unraveling her motives would unlock the final pieces of the case. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting a golden hue over the town, Detective Beaumont gathered her thoughts, ready to shine a light on the shadows that had taken hold in Maplewood. The trial. As autumn turned to winter in Maplewood, the air was thick with a tension that reverberated through the town like a low, ominous hum. Claire Riley's arrest had sent shockwaves through the community, but it was the looming trial that whipped sentiment into a fervor. The quaint courthouse, normally a backdrop for local disputes and civil matters, transformed into an arena of emotion where grief, anger, and disbelief would play out public. Detective Beaumont sat in the dimly lit gallery of the courthouse on the opening day of the trial, surrounded by rows of townsfolk clinging to friends and family, bracing for the impending testimony. The wooden benches creaked under the weight of anticipation. As the courtroom doors swung open, the crowd hushed. Claire, dressed in muted gray, appeared under guard, exuding an aura of both fragility and defiance. The prosecution wasted no time in painting a vivid picture of motive. They outlined the jealousy festering between Claire and Linda, bolstered by evidence from the book club, a tattered roster of meetings that itemized Claire's declining attendance, highlighted by the shift in narrative during their last gathering. Linda had received nothing but glowing feedback for her recent book suggestion. Experts delved into the psychological impacts of social rivalry, evoking empathy for Linda, but laying a foundation to suggest Claire could have acted out of desperation. As testimony unfolded, visceral emotions suffused the space. Witness after witness recounted the dynamics of the book club, the laughter, camaraderie, but also the undercurrents of competition that threatened to destabilize friendships. Claire's character became a tapestry of nuance, painted by both ardent supporters and those who had caught glimpses of her darker undertones. Detective Beaumont found herself entranced yet horrified as Claire, when called to the stand, transformed from a suspect into a figure of tragedy. Her voice trembled under questioning, and as she recounted her feelings of inadequacy and betrayal, there were murmurs of sympathy mingling with lingering contempt. "I never meant for any of this to happen," Claire pleaded, her eyes flickering with emotions, both compelling and unsettling, casting uncertainty over what was fact and what was a performance. Closing arguments swirled around the courtroom, woven with threads of familiarity and deep-seated prejudices. The jury deliberated, and the weight of the decision bore down heavily on them, as judgment loomed like an unrelenting specter, promising to change lives irreversibly. Beaumont gazed intently at Claire, realizing that the trial was not just about the crimite, was an exploration of the fragility of human relationships. The darkness that could lie just beneath the surface of everyday life. Outside, Maplewood held its breath. The gavel would soon strike, but the echoes of that fateful day in November would reverberate through the lives of everyone involved, leaving scars that would endure beyond the courtroom's reach. The aftermath. The verdict had been delivered, and as the gavel struck, it resonated like a thunderclap across Maplewood. Claire Riley stood for a moment, stunned, her expression a chaotic blend of relief and despair as the jury declared her guilty of second-degree murder. In that instant, the court and the town were forever changed. Detective Beaumont fought to suppress her emotions, watching Linda Johnson's family in their quiet devastation reminded her of the incalculable cost of jealousy and darkness. Following the trial, the small town bore its scars. The green and gold leaves that once danced merrily in the autumn breeze turned brittle and fell, replacing vibrant colors with a stark expanse of gray. Maplewood, once a sanctuary of neighborly warmth, now seemed haunted by the specter of betrayal and loss. Cafes and markets were filled with murmurs of opinions, with each table discussing the unfolding events with a simmering tension. Some expressed sympathy for Claire, calling her a tragic figure, while others mourned Linda. Her absence an irreplaceable void felt throughout the community. In the months that followed, the investigation lingered in the background of everyday life, casting a heavy pall over the town's annual events. The book club that once thrived dwindled as members drifted away. Those who remained rendered silent by the shadow of their former leader. Saturdays that had blossomed into spirited gatherings morphed into reminders of what had been lost, and the once vibrant corners of Maplewood adopted a muted tone, as if they too grieved the strings of connectivity that had once woven the community together. Detective Beaumont resumed her work, but the case lingered in her thoughts, a testament to the fragile complexity of human relationships. The discussions around town turned introspective. People began to reevaluate their friendships, looking beneath the surface for rivalries that might fester and decay. The haunting silence left in Linda Johnson's absence rippled beyond her family, affecting strangers who could only watch as a friendship soured into tragedy. While Claire faced the consequences of her actions, a sense of unease settled over Maplewood. The familiarity that had once enveloped the town began to unravel. The trust that had once been its backbone now felt tentative. Beaumont realized that while justice had been served, the healing would take time, and closure remained elusive. As winter encroached, layering the town in frost, its residents confronted an unsettling truth. Darkness could emerge from the most unassuming places, and vigilance was now the moral fabric that stitched their lives together. In the echoes of what had transpired within the walls of the courtroom and the shadows of the Johnson home, the community held their breath, learning that the fragile line separating love from jealousy could unravel in an instant, leaving behind a chilling reminder of the depths to which the human heart could plunge. Reflection. As the days and weeks dragged on in Maplewood, Detective Beaumont found solace in her morning walks through the town. The winter chill was biting, but the fresh air brought clarity, cutting through the heaviness that lingered in her heart. Each step felt like a penance, a reminder of the fragile nature of life and the consequences of choices. The laughter of children playing in the distance occasionally broke the silence, but it was no longer the pure sound of innocency. It was tinged with the weight of knowledge, a poignant reminder that joy and sorrow could coexist in delicate balance. In a quiet moment spent at the town's small cafe, Beaumont overheard a conversation between two women reflecting on Linda's memory, expressing a profound awareness of how deeply their actions could resonate and reverberate through the tapestry of community life. A palpable grief still lingered in the air, but there was also a newfound determination to connect with one another, to foster relationships grounded in understanding rather than competition. As she took a thoughtful sip of her coffee, Beaumont realized that the events of the last few months had altered more than just relationships. They had transformed the very essence of Maplewood. Community, once marked by unchecked jealousy, had chosen a path of resilience and connection. Healing would not come overnight, but the journey toward rebuilding trust had begun. Beneath the layers of hurt, there was a glimmer of hope, a collective acknowledgement that while darkness could emerge from the most unassuming corners, it was the light of shared experiences and newfound compassion that could guide them forward. In this quieter space, Beaumont felt an unyielding resolve blossom within her, to foster vigilance not only as a detective, but also as a witness to the human condition. She understood that true crime stories weren't simply tales of horror, but reflections of choices that shaped lives, urging every person to tread carefully the fine line between shadow and light.